Hello, Seiiti Arata. There are some work environments that can drive you bonkers. Have you ever felt like you're not being true to yourself? Have you had trouble expressing your own beliefs, your opinions, because of fear of retaliation from your bosses and coworkers? Well, if that's the case, you're not alone, because in recent years, our society has become increasingly polarized. And one of the strategies used in many workplaces is to suppress and cancel dissenting voices. And this can make work quite stressful, right? If you are in a work environment that makes you question your sanity, it is a tricky thing to be spending most of your time, your days in a company where most of your colleagues have different ideologies and perspectives, especially when it comes to sensitive political issues. Now, you might try to force yourself to stay quiet during discussions or agree with the ideas that you truly don't believe in, but you just want to avoid conflict. You want to fit in. But this generally leads to a feeling of stress, anxiety, making you question your own sense of self and reality. You need to find a way to express yourself at work authentically, without fear. Now, just think about your situation, this environment that is driving you mad. Probably one of the main emotions you're struggling with is fear. Fear of expressing your ideas, disagreeing with your colleagues, facing backlash from your bosses. And to feel better at work, you need to find a way to express yourself authentically and feel comfortable during different perspectives without fear of being judged or rejected. Authenticity is a precious human value that is linked to freedom. So it is important to be true to yourself without compromising your own values, your beliefs, your thoughts. In other words, you need to feel free to be yourself without fear or receive some unfair backlash. Now, it is normal to have different perspectives and beliefs from other people, and it is important to feel comfortable expressing whatever it is that you think authentically, of course, as long as you're respectful. Now, navigating a crazy-making environment is a very tough thing to do, and over time, this can lead to constant questioning of your reality, a loss of trust in yourself and others, and even an erosion of your self-esteem. There are risks in these madness-making environments. They can make you feel trapped in negative thought patterns, leading you to severe anxiety, depression, difficulty with decision-making, and distinguishing between what is fact and fiction, and develop a difficult sense of how to evaluate your reality. Make sure you don't suffer financial loss or damage to your mental health. The maddening work environment is a threat to both of these. Dealing with a crazy-making work environment is a tough thing to do. However, the most important thing to do here is to not lose your mental health. I know that this is very important for you to be true to yourself, of course. But you also have to remember that both your job, your salary, and your mental health are important. And although authenticity is an important thing that we have to be trying to achieve in our life, it doesn't mean that you should be always speaking up and fighting against the company's ideology at all times. Doing so would only cause more stress, more tension for yourself, and even increase the chances of you getting fired. But it's not just about keeping your job. It's about not going mad. And to not go mad, you need to make sure that you are also engaging in healthy activities outside of your work that help to clarify who you are, your sense of identity, and your values. If you don't have clarity about your identity, the risk is that you might start defining your identity by your job. That's where things can get really complicated. When the workplace ideology conflicts with your personal values, it can lead to self-questioning, make you feel like you're going mad, you're completely drained. So you need to find a balance between keeping your job and also maintaining your authenticity, your mental health. So the first step to finding that balance is to make sure that you don't lose your job. Well, because you need that income, you need to pay your bills. If you can quickly find another job that pays you even better, well, that would be a story for another day, for another video. The second step is to protect and take care of your mental health. So set aside some time to really understand who you are, what your deep values are. And then when you're ready, start expressing these values, expressing yourself authentically, but please do it in a way that doesn't cause trouble for you. And remember, it is normal to disagree with your colleagues as long as you are respectful and that you're mindful about what you're saying. And if you notice there are high risks of retaliation, well, you can consider to be more strategic in your communication of what you will speak up and when to do it. So in summary, it is very important to be authentic and true to yourself, but it's also important to be making sure that you don't put yourself, your job at risk. Understand your values clearly. This is one of the reasons why we start by identifying your values in our training, planning your life. That starts with interactive activities to make your values crystal clear. Your identity, clarified by your values, becomes extremely strong, and then you can face even those insane environments without having the risk of burnout. Choose your battles. The best way to have total freedom is to also have a good financial reserve. Being in a toxic work environment can be really tough because your colleagues are constantly putting you down, making sometimes even you question your own reality. But before you go and confront them, think about your priorities. If you don't have a plan to get a new job that will pay you as well or even better, might be a good idea to hold your tongue a little bit, to keep your job for a while. But it is also important to remember that just because you keep quiet at work, that doesn't mean you are abandoning your beliefs or your values. Being a free individual means you have the freedom to express your opinions out loud. However, you also need to be realistic and understand that this is a choice, and every choice has consequences, like, for example, the risk of losing your job. So always remember this question: is it worth it? If you're in a position where you're more vulnerable, you cannot find another job very easily or equivalent one, or maybe even one with a better salary, it might be strategic for you to stay quiet for a while and not put your important job at risk. However, if you do have financial security, whether it is through your savings or you have a great ability to transition quickly to another job, it will be really satisfying to be authentic and genuine, and every time that you want, you can express your disagreement and make a difference at work. And that's why we have so many materials here on financial independence. Money. That's why I'm talking about money all the time in our Seiiti Arata series. The idea is not to encourage you to be greedy or obsessed with money, but to have enough savings so you don't feel afraid. So you don't feel forced to stay in a work environment that is harmful to your mental health. You shouldn't be afraid to be who you are, to have your own opinions. And unfortunately, lack of money can also make people lose that freedom. So please make sure to watch the entire Seiiti Arata series to continue educating yourself about money. The important thing here is to be strategic in any situation. Think about the potential consequences of expressing yourself and see if it's worth facing those consequences. Remember, it is normal to disagree with your colleagues as long as you're respectful and that you're smart in your communication. It is not easy to navigate a toxic work environment, but with good strategy, choosing your battles wisely, you can protect yourself, you can protect your mental health, while also standing firm in your beliefs. A toxic work environment can be really challenging, but even in the toughest situations, it is important to remember that you have the power to protect yourself, to protect your financial health, to protect your mental health. Having a good idea of who you are, what are your values, that will help you to make good strategic decisions. That's why we start with many activities to clarify your personal values in our Planning Your Life training. It is not about giving up your authenticity because you need to keep that job, but rather being strategic and thinking about what are the possible consequences of expressing yourself. So anyway, to conclude here, always continue to learn more about finances so you don't get stuck in a job that is not good for you. Be strong. Don't let anybody else define who you are. Some work environments can drive us mad by not allowing authenticity and the free expression of ideas. So remember, it is normal to disagree with your colleagues and stand up for yourself for the values that you really believe in, as long as you are respectful and also that you take into account what are the consequences. The most important thing here is that you are aware of what is going on and you make sure that you're protecting your finances, and protecting your mental health. And to do this, you need to have a very clear mapping of your personal values. That's why I invite you now to visit the link arata.se/your values.